There are probably thousands of moments from your life that you will never remember. Not because you weren't there. You were. You saw things. You heard voices. You recognized faces. You learned how the world worked. But ask yourself one simple question. What is your earliest memory? 3 years old? 4? Maybe 5? Now go back to the day before that memory. And the day before that. Eventually, your entire childhood just disappears. But here's the part that makes this strange. Your brain was already making memories. So, where did they go? For a long time, people thought babies simply weren't capable of forming the kind of memories adults have. It sounds reasonable. Except, babies can remember. They can recognize familiar people. They can learn patterns. They can remember things they've experienced. And researchers have even found evidence that activity in the hippocampus during infancy can be associated with later memory. So your baby brain wasn't a blank slate. It wasn't waiting for someone to press a giant memory on button. Something was being stored, which creates a much bigger mystery. If, baby, you could make memories, why can't adult you open them? Scientists call this infantile amnesia, and it's one of the strangest features of human memory. Adults typically have very few autobiographical memories from their earliest years, especially the first 3 or 4. But notice what that means. Your childhood wasn't necessarily empty. Your access to it is. Imagine someone gave you a camera, and you recorded the first 3 years of your life. Then they handed you the camera today. You press play, nothing. You try another file, nothing. The recordings may have existed, but the adult, you can't simply replay them. And researchers are increasingly interested in exactly this distinction. Forming a memory isn't the same thing as being able to retrieve it years later. Think about what was happening to your brain during those years. You weren't just getting taller. Your brain was undergoing enormous development. Connections were changing. Memory systems were developing. Language was appearing. Your understanding of the world was expanding. And the machinery involved in learning and remembering was becoming more effective. One line of research even suggests that infancy may be an important period for learning how to learn and remember. That's an incredible idea. Your brain wasn't simply recording your childhood. It was still learning how to record, and that could help explain why early memories are so vulnerable to being forgotten. But there's another problem, and this one has almost nothing to do with the hippocampus. Think about how you remember something today. You might say, "When I was 8, I went to the beach with my family." There's a little word hidden inside that sentence. I, the person experiencing the memory. That's important. Autobiographical memory isn't just remembering an event. It's remembering an event as part of your own personal past, and that ability develops gradually. Your language develops, your understanding of time develops, your concept of yourself develops. You begin understanding that yesterday happened, today is happening, and tomorrow hasn't happened yet. You start building a story about who you are. That language, self-concept, narrative ability, understanding of time, and social development all contribute to the emergence of autobiographical memory. So maybe you could experience something without having the same mental framework that adult you uses to remember it. And now we have a paradox. The experiences happened, the brain was learning, memory abilities were developing, and yet the adult version of you can't access most of it. It's almost like your brain spent years writing the first chapters of your life, then lost the table of contents. But here's where it gets even stranger. Some early experiences can continue to influence us, even when we can't consciously remember them. Research into infantile amnesia has specifically examined this paradox, how early experiences can have lasting effects even though explicit memories of those experiences later become inaccessible. So maybe the memories aren't simply gone. Imagine dropping a stone into wet cement. The stone disappears. You can't see it anymore. But the impression remains. Early experiences can work somewhat like that. You may not be able to consciously replay the event, but your brain has still been shaped by what happened, the voices you heard, the people you interacted with, the environment you grew up in, the things you learned, the patterns you experienced over and over. You may not remember learning them, but your brain did. And that's why saying, "I don't remember it," isn't the same as saying, "It didn't affect me." Now, let's test something. Think about your earliest memory. Don't just think about what happened. Ask yourself, how do I know I remember it? Maybe you've seen an old photograph of yourself standing beside a birthday cake. Your parents told you the story. You heard it again and again. And eventually, your brain constructed a version of the event. That doesn't mean you're deliberately making it up. Human autobiographical memory is reconstructive. We can know that something happened without necessarily possessing a genuine recollection of the original experience, and that makes our earliest memories surprisingly complicated, because there's a difference between remembering an event and knowing an event happened. Imagine your parents tell you, you loved that red toy when you were 2. You don't remember the toy, but you've heard the story 20 times, you've seen a photograph, you've seen the toy itself. Eventually, your brain has enough information to construct an image, and that image can feel personal. That's one reason researchers are careful about treating very early autobiographical memories as perfect recordings of the past. Memory isn't a video file. Every time you retrieve a memory, your brain is reconstructing something. And the farther back you go, the more complicated that reconstruction can become. So why can't you remember being a baby? This is where we have to resist the temptation to give you a simple answer, because scientists don't have one. Infantile amnesia appears to involve multiple processes: the developing brain, changes in memory systems, rapid forgetting during childhood, language, the developing sense of self, how children learn to tell stories about their past, and how memories are encoded, stored, and retrieved over time. So the answer probably isn't your baby brain couldn't remember. It's closer to your brain could learn and remember, but the memories didn't survive or remain accessible in the same way your later autobiographical memories did. And that's a much stranger answer, because somewhere inside your history, there is a version of you that you can never consciously meet. The baby who recognized familiar voices, the toddler who was learning words, the child who didn't know what a smartphone was, didn't know what school was, didn't know what adulthood was, didn't know what your future would become. That person experienced the beginning of your life without knowing it was the beginning. And now you can't go back. So the next time you look at a photograph of yourself as a baby, don't just think, I don't remember that. Think about what that sentence really means. Your life didn't begin when your memories began. Your memories simply begin where your brain finally became good enough at keeping the story. The first chapters aren't necessarily empty. They're just chapters you can no longer read. And somewhere before your earliest memory, there was a little version of you, already experiencing the world, already becoming the person you're watching right now. You just don't remember meeting them.